you're in Northern California. You submit asylum cases. Is that part of the?
I did do asylum. Right now I'm over inundated with the other cases I'm working on, so I'm very limited with asylum cases.
And do you have any idea of timelines right now in Northern California? Because Southern California, we have cases 6-7 years pending asylum. I don't do asylum, but I get the calls on it. But then again, we have cases where I see cases where people file it and they get their appointment 3 months later. So it's all over the book. But if we just add this boatload of Afghan asylum cases, this is going to like destroy the asylum system in California. I mean, that's just too much for them to bear. So having a complete separate system is the only thing that makes logical sense in any way. This AAA Act makes only
yeah, and in the right, and in the Afghan cases, they have said that they're setting up a separate unit to expedite it within 100 certain days. I don't remember if it's 150 or 160 days, and I don't know how feasible that is. But having said that, there was a case out of the Boston office where a gentleman had applied for asylum. He was one of the parolees, and his two brothers had been SIV holders, and he worked in some capacity with the U.S. government, and he got an notice of intent to deny. So if you're getting cases like that, how is everyone else going to be able to? And then another decision that came out. One of the biggest fears we're seeing is, as Afghans are getting off, they're realizing, okay, I have 1 year from the date I arrived, which is August, September, October, November, whatever they came in, they must apply for asylum within 1 year. Just today, I was talking to a non-attorney who had the good intention, said, well, let's just get the asylum cases in so meet the deadline. And I'm like, no, you must have a very adequate asylum case. I'd rather they wait close to the deadline and file an adequate rather than just for the sake of filing, because that becomes part of the record. That's going to be possibly inconsistent and hurt them in the long run.
Yeah. What an extremely messy situation. And, he says some of these people are maybe from the farmlands or something. They get plucked out of there to America, a completely different culture, a completely different language. What a hard time to adjust. I've had friends who were Afghans who fled, again, their Soviet times, they went to Pakistan, and they came here 20, 30 years ago. They've adjusted really well, but a lot of them in DC area in particular. But it's just it must be so difficult for these people. What a wild life to have.
Yeah, and the biggest challenge right now, a lot of them they're in Airbnbs and they're in hotels. I know there's about 300 families, for example, in Northern California, in Modesto, in the middle of rural area, and they're just in hotels. So right now they're barely trying to figure out how are they going to live, where are they going to live, and a large number of these Afghans have anywhere between 4 to 11 children, and some of them have been put in hotels with 1 bedroom, the full family. Wow. So right now, what's on the back of their mind is where I'm going to live, how I'm going to live, what's going to happen, and then the legal stuff. There was a lot of the bases didn't have access to legal services for everybody. So for example, at Fort Dix, which had up to, I think, 15, 16,000, I would say about 13, 14,000 didn't have any access to legal services because they were very in control and didn't allow those services. So when me and a couple of other attorneys went to Fort Dix in the second week of February, there's only 1,800 people left. And so we gave them services. So now you're imagining 15,000 people from one base that had no access to legal services. They think the work permit is the green card.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be a lot of challenges in so many capacities.
So the lack of planning with regard to the ending of the war continues. It's not in the headlines anymore, but the disaster both there and here, it continues. Wow.
Well, you have to also keep in mind that the Trump administration pretty much shrunk the budget for resettlement agencies.
True, yeah.
There were a lot of them on the brink of closing with no staff. And then you have the perfect storm and you bring in 80,000 plus Afghans. Keep in mind, we were just told the other day that there's another 20,000 Afghans that are on the lily pads that need to be brought in. They're estimating to bring in 2,000 a month up until September 2022. They are no longer going to the safe havens, which were the military bases. In the article that I talked about, they're going to a conference center somewhere in Virginia that they've contracted with to be able to move them in. But the resettlement agencies are over inundated. A lot of them don't have the legal services and they're just barely keeping up. I just heard a really sad story and she said she didn't want it to be in the media, but I was so heartbroken. One of the individuals, I guess it was in Missouri, I believe, the resettlement caseworker wasn't able to get to her in time. She went into labor and the baby died.
Oh my God.
So in the hotel room,
Oh my God. Oh
because
my.
she didn't know how to use 911. And the caseworker said they were busy, didn't get through. So I'm not pointing fingers by any means to anyone. I'm just giving you the facts of the situation.
It's a disaster. Wow.